Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the Queens Borough Queens Borough Cabinet, a monthly meeting comprised of the district managers of the 14 Queens community boards. I'm excited to announce that we have members of the Queens delegation of the U.S. House of Representatives with us this morning for a roundtable discussion. With us this morning, I believe we'll be joined by Congressman Meeks, Tom Swazi. I believe we have Carolyn Maloney, Grace Ming, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I believe that other representatives will sign into this meeting as their schedule permits. Before we begin our roundtable discussion, I would like to allow the representatives here to deliver some brief remarks. I'm going to also just remind everyone who's watching that our community board application is up online. The deadline is February 19th. So all of you are deputized out there to ensure that you're pushing your respective communities to apply for the community board, especially in light of the conversations we've been having about diversity and access for the community boards. So this is a real key opportunity. We also have the SWAB application available online as well, Solid Waste Advisory Board, as we talk about the environment. We wanted to ensure that this board actually started in Queens. So I urge everybody to apply for that. I believe you have up until February 23rd to do that. So with that being said, I guess I'm leading this charge. We'll start with introductions by my good friend, Rep. Grace Ming, and then we'll go to, I'm just gonna go in the order I see on my screen. Then we will go to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, then to Tom Swazi, and then whoever else joins in will have remarks from them. So I'll start with you, Congresswoman Grace Ming.
Thank you so much, Borough President Donovan Richards, and to all our community board leaders here in Queens. It's such an honor to be here with you. And even though I wish we could see each other in person, I appreciate this opportunity to have this discussion with all of you virtually. I think hopefully you'll hear a lot of helpful information on what Congress has done so far and what we will continue to fight for. Just by background, I represent District 6, Northeast and Central Queens, a little bit of Western. I sit on the House Appropriations Committee. It's the committee that funds all our federal agencies. Today is a very exciting day in Washington, D.C. I'm here in New York, but in Washington today, there is the impeachment trial that begins today. And also Congress members on both the House and Senate are pushing through this $2 trillion coronavirus relief package, the American Rescue Plan. We know that Queens residents need more help. We know better than anyone else in the country because Queens really was first hit. We were the epicenter of the epicenter. People knew, and Alex and I, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and I worked with Elmhurst Hospital like in the first weeks. And within weeks, sadly, the whole country knew of hospitals like Elmhurst and others in Queens because of the visual images that were being shown on TV and what our families were going through. I especially want to thank our new-ish borough president, Donovan Richards, for fighting so hard on vaccine access for our residents. We know that it has not been equitable for our members. I want to put a special plug for a part of my district in Northeast Queens, which has not gotten any vaccine sites. And I know that Marilyn and Mike and Joseph have been fighting hard on this. There may be some good news coming out of Northeast Queens. We know that we've been working with the governor's office and with the borough president's office over the last few days, and we are very hopeful to be able to announce something very soon. But in terms of vaccine, I've also been working with my colleagues in New York and around the country in pushing for more data. We simply do not know who is getting these vaccines. We don't know which one of our districts has been getting enough or not enough. We don't know the demographics of the folks who are getting them. And so we really need more data before we can make sure that we are sufficiently addressing the shortage and who's receiving them. Quick note, yesterday we had a Zoom with many of our co-op leaders. Co-ops at first were not included in the PPP, the small business loan grants. Many of you know you have members that are co-op owners. They still had to maintain payroll. They had to pay expenses and maintenance and repairs. And so I want to say a special thank you to Senator Schumer and Congressman Swazi for working on this issue so closely with us to make it happen, to allow co-ops to be included. An issue that's really near and dear to my heart, actually before the coronavirus even, was the issue of broadband access. On a good day before the coronavirus hit, there are about 12 million plus kids around the country who have no access to the internet, right? Like they have to go to the parking lot of their local fast food restaurants. They have to sit in the stairwell of their apartment building, go to the library if and when it's open. And so this was a problem even before the pandemic hit. We have been able to get billions of dollars passed to make sure that kids across the country are able to get access. On a good day, 30% of New York City kids don't have access. And we all know what it's like these days. My kids are at home full time. They need the internet to be able to do homework. It's not like when we were kids. I asked my kids once to show me their textbook and they laughed in my face because they said, look, Ma, everything's online now. So we continue to push for more affordable access on that end. Food security is something that all of us, literally, former Borough President Sharon Lee was super active and kicking these programs off. And we need to make sure that we are getting not just sufficient money for our food pantries, sources to be able to provide halal and kosher food, but also there are a lot of things that we could be doing that we're not. Using benefits, for example, allowing benefits to be used to purchase food at local ethnic groceries, bodegas, the corner deli, restaurants. These measures would help a lot of our small businesses. And so we need to continue to push for that. And that's one of my priorities in Congress. And I'll end with a local note, some of the things that we've worked on locally. Long Island Railroad, we finally got handicapped accessible ramps and elevators. It took about 5 years at the Murray Hill Station and the Flushing Station. We have, during non-corona times, someone from the Veterans Affairs that comes to our office once a month. And I know that the borough president has resources and an office in Queens Borough Hall as well. And this is just us working to continue to make government access services more accessible for Queens residents, and that we are not the forgotten borough. And lastly, what's timely is about over a year or two ago, I forget now, we opened a small business development center at Queens College. Anyone in the borough can go to get help for free. There are staff who speak multiple languages. If you're applying for PPP, if you're starting a business, if you need more capital, please utilize this resource. Our office can get you the contact information. And I will end there. Thank you, Borough President. Thank you to all our community board leaders. I don't want to name them because even though I represent most of them, I don't want the others to get upset. But thank you so much for all that you've done during this pandemic and all that you continue to do.
Thank you. And we'll come around to have everyone introduce themselves as well after they start, so everybody knows who's on. We'll now go to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you so much, Borough President Richards, and thank you to everyone who's joining us here on the call today. Grace covered so much. I'll try to make my update quick. And so, I think similar to what Grace had mentioned, we're working on making sure that we bring more vaccine sites throughout the borough and that they're equitable. As Grace mentioned, both she and I represented very heavily impacted parts of Queens and our our whole borough was so hard hit, especially at the beginning of the pandemic last year. And so, she and I have both been working on bringing vaccine sites to our respective districts. And I'm really happy to announce that I've been able to work with a couple of stakeholders, and we've been able to open a vaccine site at First Baptist. That was set to open last Sunday. Due to the snowstorm, there were a few delays, but it is open now. And so in East Elmhurst, First Baptist Church has been able to open a vaccine site. It was originally designed as a pop-up site, and so we're hoping to make that a little bit more permanent, but it will also reopen to get people their second vaccinations in about 3 weeks as well. Speaking of vaccines, I have a town hall. I will be hosting a town hall tonight, and it's going to center on vaccine access so that we can answer any and everyone's questions on the current vaccine. We will be having officials from the city and the state available to also answer additional questions on city and state accessibility, and I'll be available to answer questions on federal response. In addition to that, yesterday we had Senator Schumer come and join me in Corona and to announce that we've been able to, in the most recent coronavirus package that we passed in December, actually, we were able to work with community leaders throughout Queens to get FEMA funeral assistance for any person who has lost a loved one due to the coronavirus pandemic. And so what this means is that retroactive, going all the way back to January of last year, if you lost a loved one due to COVID and the expenses of, funeral expenses or any other expenses that has to do with your loved one's passing may be eligible for full reimbursement up to $7,000 from FEMA. This is a really big initiative that we were working with Voces Latina, with Elm Corps, and with the Hispanic Federation over the last year to get passed, and we were able to get that through. So what the status update that we have as of now is that it is passed and it's locked in. FEMA is working on the portal. They're going to be building a website, and they are building a website so that you can submit your documents. Our latest update from FEMA is that they believe that website may be up in late March or early April. But what's really important for our constituents in our community to understand now is to get your documents. You need a death certificate of your loved one, citing COVID-19 either as a cause of death or related cause of death. So we're going to need a death certificate. We're also going to need any receipts or invoices to document the costs. Again, FEMA will reimburse up to $7,000 to a given family. Only one claim can be made per case, per person. And so we will also need the filer's identification, proof of identification as well. And so we need to get our community to kind of bring those 4 pieces of documentation together. Take this time to do that. And then once that portal opens, you'll be able to submit your documents. There will also be a 1-800 number available and open it with multi-language support to help people file if you would prefer not to do it online. Although doing it online will be much faster in getting your reimbursement. Lastly, as Grace mentioned, we're negotiating this almost $2 trillion coronavirus package. It's not completely locked in, but I know that myself, Grace, many, and Representative Meeks and Tom Swazi, we've been working really, really hard to make sure that the package can really meet our needs as much as possible here in New York. There was debate over lowering the the income threshold for the next stimulus checks down to $50,000. I personally think that a reality in New York City, certainly in Queens. And so we're fighting to preserve it. And it looks good so far, but I would definitely encourage everyone to if you don't want that stimulus check threshold to be lowered, to let that be known. And lastly, just a quick plug, my office has a Wounded Warrior Fellowship that is open. So if you or a loved one is a veteran of our armed services and is interested in working in our congressional awfully paid Wounded Warrior Fellowship, available to our veterans here in the Bronx and Queens. And so feel free to head over to my website to apply. And that's all I've got on my end.
Thank you. We next will go to Congressman Tom Swazi.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President. I see that Congressman Meeks and Congresswoman Maloney have joined us also, just so you're aware.
Okay, I see. Oh, I see them now. Okay.
Listen, thanks for all the good work that everybody's doing. I know everybody's trying to work so hard to try and help the people we all represent together during this really tough time. And the bottom line is that the effects of the coronavirus are very cruel at how uneven the impacts are. Some people have gotten through this whole thing unscathed. I mean, some people are making more money. They can work remotely. Their businesses are doing well. Online retail is doing great. Wall Street's doing great. A lot of people are getting through this whole thing unscathed. And other people are just wiped out. People that, have lost a loved one. I lost my father-in-law. He died within 36 hours of getting the coronavirus last April. He was 92 years old. People that have gotten so sick, people that can't go back to work. 25% of the people in America that make under $40,000 a year are unemployed right now. And it's not because, they want to be unemployed. It's because they can't go back to work. So many parents that have to stay home with their kids are not going to school, that they got to stay home with them. These people are just wiped out. So we have to really think, and our state is really hit harder than a lot of other places in America. We have the second highest death rate in the country. New Jersey's first. And we all know it was mentioned what we went through in Queens and I talked to some of our colleagues who in the beginning had no idea what was going on. They said, talking about herd immunity and, why is everybody panicking so much? I said, well, did you have refrigerator trucks full of bodies in your district? Did you have, people stacked up in tractor trailers that were dead? We did. And that's why we're under so much shock here in New York. And we're still living with the after impacts of that because everybody went through so much shock. So my big focus, vaccines like everybody else, Northeast Queens is a vaccine desert. We have to everybody's working on that at the local level. I'm not going to go into that, but everybody's working hard to do that. City Stadium open up on Wednesday will be a big deal, City Field. And so, but state and local is my big focus. We have to get money to the city of New York. We have to get money to the state. The state's two biggest expenses are school aid and healthcare. So, we can't afford not to get this money for state and local government. And the rest of the country is not as concerned about it as we are. And they think we're all rich. You heard Alexandria talking about how they want to reduce the payments for people. Somebody who makes $50,000 in my district is having a tough time. Somebody who's making $50,000 in Oklahoma, they're doing fine. $50,000 in Iowa, great. $50,000 in North Dakota, top of the world. But for us, $50,000, you're having a tough time. So people don't recognize what it's like to live where we live with the high cost of living, the high taxes, the high property values. Our wages are often higher, but it doesn't necessarily buy as much as other places in the world. So we constantly have to educate our colleagues as to what it's like here in New York. So state and local aid is a big focus for me. Another big focus is getting money for restaurants, catering halls, and live entertainment venues, things like that. These people are just wiped out completely. So there's going to be a special provision in the next COVID package that we hope that, President Biden's package of the Senate has got done, and we're working on this week for restaurants, catering halls, live entertainment venues. If you need help from our office, I see that Juddy's Justin Connor's on the call from my office. A lot of you know him already. Work with him. Call me personally if you need to, 516-404-9672. It's my cell, 516-404-9672. And then, we got a much bigger problem with rental issues than a lot of other places in the country. I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let Carolyn and Greg speak, but we're available to work with you. We know that you guys are right there on the front lines talking to our constituents on a regular basis. We really appreciate everything you do. We want to work together with you and be helpful. And the big thing coming down the pike for me is SALT. I need your help. State and local tax deduction. I see everybody nodding their head. Please make it clear to every elected official, State and local tax deduction is so important to us in Queens, so important to us in New York State. It's not important in other places in the country the way it is to us, but we're losing people. People are moving out and they're leaving. And when they leave the rest of us behind to pick up the slack. So people say, you know, oh, the rich people, they can afford it. Well, when the rich people leave us, we get left behind without their tax revenues, and the middle class and lower income people get left behind holding the bag to pay for the programs that we care about, like schools and Medicaid programs and other things that are so important to us. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate the work that you're doing.
You're about to start a debate on that.
What's that?
Yeah, I said you're about to start a debate on that in here.
It goes on all the time.
I want to debate you on that. I'm messing. All righty, we're going to go to Congressman Gregory Meeks now. My congressman, 5th Congressional District.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President. We're so proud of you and all the work that you do. And thank you to all of the individuals who do what they do in our local communities on a regular basis. Just seeing all of you on Zoom is just important because we have not been able to get in touch with you or see you personally because of this pandemic. Let me join myself with my colleagues. And I think that the first good news is that those of us, not only in Queens, but just about the entire New York City delegation is together on fighting to bring the resources back to our borough, our city, and our state. And as Tom appropriately said, many folks look at New York and they think that New York has everything and that the dollars, when you hear $50,000 or $60,000, like that's a lot of money, not if you're living in the city of New York. And so we are united, working together to try to make sure that we're bringing the resources back to our city and our state. And that's why the president's $1.9 trillion that he has proposed is extremely important. And we've been working collectively. I don't know if Grace came on when Grace was talking, mentioned this or not, but on the formula of how those dollars come back to New York. Too often we know that, Washington and many of our members, they talk about New York, but we give back to Washington more than we get back from Washington. And so we want to make sure that New York is getting back, not more than, but our proportionate share. And that's why the fight is, and the difficulty that we have, and we're trying to make sure is the formula that is utilized in the stimulus package that we get. New York gets its appropriate fair share. And that, and oftentimes when that happens, the number sounds like it's a high number that's coming back to New York, but you don't go by the raw number, you go by the proportionate share. And if you go, and the population. And if you go by population and appropriate share, that means New York should get more back than a South Dakota where there's not as many people. And so it should be a population-based formula of which we continue to work on. Now that would mean, for example, and here's what we are fighting for, is to try to make sure we know the deficits that the state and the city currently have. And we know that there will be further devastation if, in fact, and all of this is directly related to the pandemic. So if we don't get the resources back that we need from the federal government, and I might say, a lot of states learned a lot from us because no one knew about this pandemic or how to deal with it when we were the epicenter, New York, the first and the epicenter around the nation. So it even cost us more money in trying to get a grasp, particularly at a time when we had no real leadership coming from the White House at that particular time. So we, in our overall dollars, as far as the state's budget and the city's budget, was devastated. And we know that if we don't get those resources back, and this is why this formula is important, then that would mean more jobs lost from the city workers and state workers. So what we have had, and we had a meeting, the New York delegation with both of our senators. We were all on board, as I said, working together, and with Governor Cuomo, and trying to utilize the formula that would get us at least $15 billion back to try to cover the deficit that was caused by the pandemic, so that the governors and the mayor will not have to make the choice of reducing services and or eliminating jobs of hardworking New Yorkers. So we're focused as a delegation to try to make that happen in a unified basis. Specifically for Queens, what I'm also focusing on, what we're trying to do is, we know that Queens is the gateway to the nation. Why do I say that? Because of the two airports that we have, LaGuardia and Kennedy. And we know that that those airports have been devastated by this pandemic. And we've been trying to make the airports, to improve them, to make them more of the state of the art type of airports, because it's going to be, whenever we do get back, it's going to be very competitive. People will choose which way to go, and we need the revenue to make sure that they're coming back into New York. And we've started these projects of renovating both LaGuardia, and you've seen a lot of the progress that was there, and at JFK. But what was devastated, and we found a way to make sure that other public transportation, like the MTA, must be covered, because if we want to save, to make sure that it helps the environment, make sure that people get the opportunity to get to and from work, there had to be a separate area of funding for the MTA. And then we'll look to build upon that with an infrastructure bill that I'm sure that will follow once we get past the stimulus package and get back right on, because that is what the president has been talking about he wants to do. Likewise, I'm trying to get a bucket of money to help the Port Authority so that they can continue the projects that they have started at LaGuardia and at Kennedy Airport, which also means thousands of jobs that were either coming or that are already there, fighting to make sure, because we've been working with them to make sure that everybody in Queens benefits as a result of the construction and other work that's going to be done at the airport. So we're looking at trying to make sure that there is a designated sum of money, because when you think about passenger facility charges, is which helps these airports live, and you look at the ridership, has been virtually non-existent for over a year. And the only way that they can come back and we can begin to make sure that we continue in this process is to have a sum of money that they have access to, so that we can continue moving the progress here in Queens County with our two airports. So with that, let me just say the last part of the argument has been, we had a hearing, Alexandria and I, because we both serve on the Financial Services Committee also. The debate that was going back and forth is whether or not, when you talk about the stimulus package, is the risk greater if you have if it's a smaller amount of investment in stimulus or a greater amount in stimulus. And I think that we all agree, as well as many and most economists, that the risk is so great we should have more than. Don't take the risk of putting in less than, more than we need in the stimulus package, because we should have learned from the lesson of 2008, when people used the figure of $900 billion at that time, thinking that that was a lot of money, and we were not able to get out of the financial crisis, especially those that were on the bottom and middle class. Let's use that as an example. So let's not go in here and not have enough money so that people continue to suffer and die, as opposed to government stepping up and doing what it should do to protect its people. So I just want to make sure that you know that your New York City delegation, and I'll include Nassau County in that also, because Tom and I got a little bit of Nassau, but those of us all in the state are working in a very collective and strategic way to make it happen for our city and our state. So thank you, Borough President, for putting this together. I'm so proud of the work that you do on a continuous basis and how you bring us all together in Queens County. In the short time that you've been the borough president, you've really been crisscrossing the borough because that's what's key in Queens. We've got many different neighborhoods. We've got many different issues and different ethnicities and different religions and different languages. And what you do and have been doing is bringing us together as one Queens. And we thank you for that leadership.
Thank you, Congressman Meeks. We now will go lastly to Congresswoman Maloney.
Thank you so much, Borough President Richards, for bringing us together and for your leadership. I thank my colleagues and especially all of the district managers that really help our community boards and help our communities. I want to thank Donovan Richards for the work that we've done together to get City Fields designated as a vaccination site for Queens. Is very, very important. Also, Roosevelt Island, the entrance is from Queens, but it's considered part of my Manhattan district for some reason. I represent roughly some of the east side of Manhattan and Long Island City and Astoria, parts of Astoria, Queens, and also Greenpoint and Williamsburg, Brooklyn. But I just got Roosevelt Island is sort of very hard to get to, and we just opened up a vaccination site. It's going to be opened on Friday to serve that group of people. So I also want to thank very much the borough president for touring and advocating to help Astoria Houses repair its seawall. And we just had a big success in that the mayor has designated and signed an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to repair that terrible seawall hole. The kids can't use it, and also study the whole seawall in that area, partnered with the Army Corps of Engineers, which is picking up most of the cost for that project. I also want to announce a program that has been started by NYCHA in Queens. It takes 3 housing developments, Astoria Houses, Queensbridge, and Ravenswood. And I've been pushing for this for years, and I compliment NYCHA for finally moving on it. They have decentralized services. In those 3, they have opened up offices and are repairing everything locally. So the residents know who's repairing it. It's there. There's such a backlog. We've made progress. If we continue to make progress, NYCHA says they will take this program and move it citywide. But the repairs have been taking place more in a timely way, and I'm very proud of that. I am also proud of having worked with Hannock on a new housing development with 150 affordable housing for seniors. It's going to be on 31st Street and Broadway. They have purchased that parking lot, and I'm in the midst of getting a 202 federal grant to help build affordable senior housing on that site. My number one goal for this year and next year is the East Side Connector, an $8 billion mass transit project is connecting the LIR overflow into Grand Central. It goes right through Queens, and in the application, I put in a stop in the Sunnyside yards. It would help economic development. It would be a quality of life to get the residents back and forth to Manhattan and out to Long Island. And it would be a wonderful thing for the community. EDC has put a park around it, so it would be a park and a subway stop that serves Queens. And I am trying to get that into the transportation package that is moving through the Congress. I also want to thank Donovan and other people for helping me moderate a vaccine town hall with the Ryan Health Center this past Friday. Donovan wasn't there, but he was supportive, and I appreciate your helping bring that town hall into Queens. And I just want to say, I think the number one problem we have is getting the vaccinations out there. Thank God we have a Democratic president, and his office tells me they're now vaccinating 1.3 million people a day. Basically, I see us in a race with the virus. Right now, the virus is winning, infecting more people. We have to get out in front of it and start vaccinating more people than they are infecting. I am pleased that the committee that I represent now is going to be marking up $350 billion for which will be music to Borough President's ears, $350 billion going to cities and states. I would say that this is the heart of the Democratic fight that we've had. In a lot of the other proposals, they haven't put money in for cities and states. How do you expect to achieve anything if someone's not coordinating the communities and the distribution of the funds? It's a 60-40 match. 60% will go to states, 40% will go directly to cities. I made sure that it goes directly from Treasury to New York City so that no one stops it on the way and that we get all of the money that we're entitled to. I'm particularly worried about transportation. We got roughly $4 billion already, but in this package, the city has asked for $8 billion, and we're going to get pretty close to that, and we're going to get pretty close to the request of the governor, so that's moving forward. A top priority is getting PPP loans out of Washington and into the bodegas and into the small businesses throughout Queens. I compliment Tom Creech and his whole community effort to get the funds out. And I've worked with Nidhi Velasquez and Alexandria and others to have a very small, and Gregory Meeks, we're all on financial services, but a lot of the loans were not getting to the small people who were trying. I had one constituent only wanted $1,000. She couldn't get it funded. So we have special funding revenues for very small businesses. So this week we're going in to mark up financial services. I think the most important part for the people I represent is $25 billion to help renters stay in their homes. We are going to have a sharp pencil that we get our fair share for Queens. And I just want to thank all of my colleagues in government. We have one of the strongest delegations. We work together and we get results. And I just want to thank you, Borough President Richards. This is the first time this has happened, that you've pulled us together with the people on the street at the community boards that tell us what the priorities are, and bringing us together in this way, I think, is going to make us even more effective. So I yield back and I thank you, and I'm here to listen and learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think you alluded to something great on partnership. And this is one of the reasons we wanted to do this and to invite the delegation and really open up these meetings for more conversations on how we can work together. And you alluded to that Astoria seawall, which was like ridiculous because all it took was a call to the Department of Small Business Services to like fix this issue, which was lingering like for like a year or two. And I also want to give credit to also Councilmember Costa Constantinidis, because we, also collectively got to the mayor's office on this issue last week, and literally in 2 hours it was resolved. I mean, so it speaks to the importance of partnership and communication together on issues that impact the borough. And while I want to take credit for City Field, it was really the entire delegation who also signed on to that letter, including AOC, who unfortunately there was like a screw up somewhere, but whatever. The point is everybody raised their voice on this issue, and we got results on this issue. So I look forward to continuing a strong partnership with each and every one of you. And I'm going to shut up now and open up the floor for the district managers to ask questions and to also introduce themselves. So you have your moment. We all have been talking about issues that you've raised last week. We held about a 12-hour budget hearing that stretched from like 9 a.m. to like almost 11 o'clock at night. And many issues were raised. I think we had over 150 people testify from around the borough, but many issues around food insecurity, around transportation, hospital beds, which if I had to plug anything to the delegation, we really have to work collectively on this issue on bringing more beds into Queens, the possibility of federal dollars coming down, which could perhaps enable us to build some new institutions here in Queens. So that's something, that this office will be calling on your assistance for moving forward. But I want to open the floor up to the district managers who've had their pulse on the issues that really impact our communities for a long time to introduce themselves and to be concise in your questions, and so that we can continue to value the time of everybody here. I know our delegation is very busy, so I'll open the floor up, and please introduce yourself and raise your question. Don't all be shy. All right, we're going to go to Mark McMillan from Community Board 13 first.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Borough President, for putting this together, and welcome to all of our congressional delegation. I'm Mark McMillan. I represent Community Board 13, which is East Southeast Queens, Rosedale, Laurelton, Cambria Heights, Queens Village, Floral Park, New Hyde Park, and I might have forgotten the community. But in any event, I have a very, very simple question. And Congresswoman Maloney referred to it a few minutes ago. With the PPP, last go round, organizations like the Lakers were receiving money. What provisions are you putting in this legislation now so the smaller businesses, as she said, like the bodegas on the corner or the smaller restaurants on our decimated commercial strips, will have an opportunity to get access to this money as the money is put out there? And you know, if there's assistance that's going to happen, how is that assistance going to be delegated? Is it going to go through the state and the city? But it's really important, I think, that they have access to get these monies, even if it is just $1,000. So I'm very curious about how you're going to do that.
Okay, I think that in the first round, too much of the money went to larger facilities. We actually had to go out and claw it back and tell them they weren't supposed to get it and get the money back in. And so the next time that we went out, Gregory and Alexandria and Nydia Velasquez and I, along with Maxine Waters, chairman of the committee, we put aside a set of money that would be for smaller applicants, say under 5,000, 10,000. In other words, smaller loans, not huge loans for the PPP, which if you meet certain criteria becomes a grant. And so we put smaller groups, sort of like PayPal, it's the economic development group, that the federal deposit. There were like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different smaller pots of money. You're not going into such a large bank that doesn't want to process a smaller loan. What happens is that I think the best way to get help is to go to your congressperson and their office. I have 2 or 3 people in my office that do primarily only PPP loans, and walking through it and working with them. Each loan is different. Each application is different, and it has to be treated differently. In the first round, we, meaning Queens, didn't get many of the PPP loans. And I know the Chamber of Commerce, I believe his name is Tom Creech, called me up and said, Carolyn, we don't have any of these loans. So all of us collectively went back and said, hey, Queens is not being treated fairly. The next round, we got a large amount of loans, and hopefully in this next package, we'll get our fair share. And it's our job to have a sharp pencil and the time to help people go through the process and vouch for them and help them get those loans. So I would say it's important to reach out. What did Tip O'Neill say? All politics is geography. All politics
is local.
Yeah, go to your local office and work with them. It's our job to work with you. We're here to serve you.
Let me also plug on that. Most of you saw us announce the Queens Small Business Grant with the New York Mets. And I was very happy to get out just last week around the borough. We were in Jackson Heights and Corona. Happy to say that over 50 businesses have received up to, you can receive a grant up to 20,000, but walking the streets and meeting some of those business owners last week was great to see that they got, a shot in the arm or some assistance to stop the bleeding on the rent, because we know rent has been like such a big issue. So I urge everyone to really push this program. You can go to queensbp.org. I believe the application is up. You have to go through 6 different community-based organizations. And one of the reasons we wanted the community-based organizations was because they have more of their pulse of what's happening on the ground, but also it enables us to track data to know that this program is actually working for the communities who primarily might not have even received the PPP. right? So so there's two communities. Well, there are several zip codes that are prioritized. The communities that were hit hardest by COVID were prioritized. So your zip codes up in Corona and East Elmhurst, Far Rockaway. So the areas primarily hit hardest by COVID are being prioritized, those applications. We also were able to ink in street vendors, which is very important. So there's about $300,000 set aside just for street vendors, and then also daycares, as long as they're they have a storefront on the boulevard or in your business district, they're able to access this. So I urge everybody, 17 million, we know it's going to go fast. The priority is MWBEs as well. They've been prioritized through this. So really for every district manager, for our delegation, you know, tell everybody apply for it until this money runs out. And it's grants, no loans, straight grant money. So really, I would urge everybody to take advantage of that as well. All right.
I think what Cal is going to say, utilize the smaller institutions, because we prioritize money and set money aside for minority depository institutions and community development financial institutions, CDFIs and MDIs. And so we made sure there's an X amount of money that's set aside just for them, because we knew that the big banks were only dealing with their bigger customers. So, and we also made sure that local institutions like a CDFI, for example, in the 5th district would be Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, and they can be helpful in that regard. York College Small Business, they have their connections to some of these smaller institutions of where you can go get your PPP money and know that you can get a loan. There's assistance there.
Righty, we'll go to the next question. Don't all be shy. Yeah, I don't want any federal dollars, it looks like. No issues that impact that?
Hi.
All right.
Hi.
All right, hello. All right, go ahead.
Followed by 47.
All right.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Borough President Donovan Richards and the congressional delegation, and to all my colleagues in government. As you know, I'm Debbie Markell, and I serve Sunnyside, Woodside, Long Island City. And our issues here is there was no mobile vaccine center. Our seniors really have been underserved throughout the entire borough because everything was rolled out online. And if you didn't have family members savvy enough to get on tech and get on computers to help them get vaccinated, it really was a sad debacle to the entire, not just to this community, but the entire borough of Queens. So we're advocating here in Western Queens that Sunnyside Community Center was willing to open, and the senior centers would be a great place to have vaccines for the seniors. One, they're comfortable in going to their senior centers. And two, it's a large place that they do serve meals, they do have refrigeration, and there's a way that we can get it out. And a lot of the senior centers, I think, would be willing to open up and become vaccination sites to make sure our seniors are being served properly. So I'm throwing that out to you. If there's any way that maybe we can get some of those senior centers open to vaccinate. It was sad. And a lot of the seniors, if you didn't have a relative to help you, they felt like they were left out. So I wanted to open that up and see if there's any way we can advocate to get something like that.
Okay, can I respond? Okay. Hi, it's Carolyn Maloney responding to.
Hi, Congresswoman, how are you?
I have just written a letter to the mayor for 3 senior sites that contacted me, that they were willing to, they had the refrigeration, they had the site, and that they were willing to do it. I'm gonna call you after this and get the sites that are in my district, and I will add them to my request. I've been told by both the governor and the mayor that if they get the vaccines, the problem is the production. By the way, the president has invoked the Defense Production Act, which allows him to go in and take over industries and convert them into producing the vaccine, because that is really the choke point. We don't have enough vaccines. The governor's office told me they're getting 250,000 vaccine shots a week, and that is like, we're 8 million people. We need 1 million. We could get it out quickly if we could just get the vaccine. But when we get the vaccine, which the president has now nationalized it, centralized it, since he's come in, they've gone to 1.3 million vaccinations a day. And so it's going to be coming up and the access will be there. And it would be easy to go to the senior sites with the vaccines, designate a day, and have everybody come in. Like you said, they trust it. So if you can give me the sites you'd like that to happen at, my office will work with you to turn them into vaccination sites. When we get the vaccine, which is the problem that we haven't had enough of it. You know, as the governor said in a meeting we had with him last week with the delegation, he said, look, I've got the National Guard. I can get these vaccines out to every place around all the sites in our great state. We just don't have the product. We don't have the vaccines. So we're working on that. But you're absolutely right. The best thing to do is to use the sites as a vaccination site. So can I call you later on today?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Give me a telephone number real quick.
718-533-8773 or 917-886-0033.
Thank
Just
you.
reminding everyone we're broadcasting live, so your numbers will be
Yeah, no.
They're
Well, that's a
public
good
anyway.
thing. That's a good thing. We want the community boards to be accessible, all right, to everybody.
could pop
Just
in
don't
as-
call it 1
oh,
a.m.
sorry.
Rep Ocasio-Cortez.
No, thank you so much. If I could pop in, because Debbie, since you also serve Sunnyside and Woodside,
Yes.
I want to just follow up. I'm happy to join Carolyn in any of those efforts and letters. We have been looking into setting up these thing that we've been hearing a lot has been homebound seniors, seniors that can't even, make it to either a clinic or a senior center.
Correct.
So there's a couple of things that we're figuring out, while some of these senior centers do have refrigeration, the Pfizer vaccine especially, but also the Moderna, they require sub-zero freezing. And so that kind of supply chain is what we're trying to figure out. Of course, there's a vaccine supply, but also the good news is that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that is right on the cusp does not require that sub-zero refrigeration. So once the Johnson & Johnson vaccine comes out, that's really where we're going to be able to, I think, see a lot of progress, especially with our homebound seniors and being able to set up vaccination sites that don't have sub-zero refrigeration, because we can't just put the vaccines next to the leftovers in the freezer. It doesn't work like that. But what we can do is see if we can get those freezers, if we can get more of those freezers specifically dedicated in more sites, that's going to help. But also once that Johnson & Johnson vaccine comes out that doesn't require that sub-zero temperature, I think we're going to be able to really vaccinate in a lot more flexible locations. But that's why you've been seeing a lot of these sites be very kind of controlled in clinics or in other places like that.
Thank you.
And I think the Johnson &
Thank you.
Johnson vaccine, I heard, is just you get it one time. I'm not sure when that's coming down, but you won't have to do the follow-up shot. I think a lot of people are looking forward to that as well. And I'll just stress the importance of us continuing to, I'm very happy to hear you're doing a town hall tonight, because we have to continue in light of, the disparities in the vaccines numbers we see thus far. We all have to continue to stress the importance to our communities of getting these vaccines. And, obviously we have a past history of vaccines in this country, no getting around it. When you look at things like the Tuskegee experiment, in Congressman Meeks' district, just yesterday we heard of a nursing home that that allegedly was giving some sort of cocktail, the Trump cocktail, to African-American veterans, and who unfortunately some of them lost the state, which is crazy.
Veterans facility.
Right. Yeah, so that sets us back in trying to build trust with communities to take this vaccine. But I think we all still have an obligation to stress that message to our communities, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're actually going to look to do some PSAs. I mean, we've been thinking about this in the BP's office. We may ask, some of you on this line to do 30-second, video or something of that nature, so we can continue to push this message out, especially as we start to see more of the production ramp up in New York State, but in Queens specifically. And I just also want to add that although we're happy Citi Field will open tomorrow, I think there are only 800 vaccines that are going to be available, vaccinations that will happen there. So we still have a long way to go, although this was, we got on first base. It's by far not a home run for Queens. Yankee Stadium, and I'm not gonna, I know a Representative Ocasio-Cortez represents part of the Bronx, so I'm gonna try to be delicate here, but like they got 14,000, they're gonna administer 14,000 doses of this vaccine there. Queens is getting 800. So, there's still disparities in the way resources are being distributed, and we take nothing away from the Bronx because we know certainly, the poorest congressional districts are in the Bronx, and there are a lot of disparities in the Bronx as well. So we don't want to make this a Queens versus the Bronx thing, but we also need to make sure as more of the vaccine comes down the line that Queens is getting, the epicenter of the epicenter is getting its fair share of resources as well. So I'm going to open it.
Aqueduct is open also.
And Aqueduct is open but even at Aqueduct, the disparities in who's taking it. And I toured it with the Lieutenant Governor 2 weeks ago, and you could clearly see there were very little people of color in there, even at that time, who were getting the vaccine. So, there's a lot of education to go on this, but we want to make sure that, these locations are being centered in communities and with community-based organizations. So thank you for that, Debbie.
I think Marilyn McAndrews wanted to say something.
All righty, we're going to go to the next question, and then we're going to try to. So if we can, Yvonne, who's next? Sorry.
Board 7.
Keep them forever. Okay, Board 7. Okay, hi, Ms. McCain.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Borough President Richards, our fellow legislators, and of course, my colleagues. My issue, as far as the seniors are concerned, 1/3 of the population in Community Board 7 are seniors. A lot of them unable to use computers, so they need someone to work with them. But I know this is all going to be straightened out. What I need to do is concentrate on Congresswoman Grace Meng. Yes, Grace, how are you? We have an issue with a veterans post, 3427. This has been going on for 5 years. I've been trying to help this guy for the last 2 years. Also involved in this is Community Board 9. So what I'm looking to do is set up another Zoom meeting with the Department of Finances, because they do have documentations for work that was done at the facility, but they keep on getting these, violations from the community, from Department of Buildings. So I'd like very much, I know I've spoken to Terry, who's speaking after this presentation, and we can discuss it, because I spoke to him for about the last year as well. And these are guys who fought for our freedom. Least we can do is give them what they need and work with them and work on funds if need be. I mean, these guys, as I said, we're here and we're free because of people like him. So I will be reaching out to you, Grace, later on today, if you don't mind. I thank you, folks. And thank you, legislators, for all you do.
Thanks, Marilyn. And if I could address this from this is an issue that we've been seeing through with various veterans posts around the borough. Which location was this again?
This was over at, the address is 13606 Horace Harding Expressway, Flushing.
Okay, we've worked on this one before. I will reach out to everyone involved. They were able to either eradicate or postpone or minimize some of the fines the last time. I think it was about a year ago. But we have worked on this specific post. So let's touch base. But in the meantime, if there are other posts, because I have other posts in my district, I'm sure everyone does, the city is unnecessarily harsh sometimes in imposing these fines, who are literally just trying to be a resource center for our veterans. And so that's a longer term issue that we need to address, whether it's DEP, Finance, Department of Buildings. They can't afford, Frank knows, we've worked with him in some of these, they can't afford these fines, and then they just want to shut them down. So let's have a longer conversation, Marilyn.
That we will do. Also, part of this here was one of my colleagues, Jimmy McClellan from Board 9. All right, also involved in this. So therefore, it's truly important and it needs to be taken care of ASAP. It's gone on too long. I thank you so much for your time, folks.
Thank you. We're going to go to Yvonne Reddick, CB12, and then to Frank. Unmute yourself, Yvonne. We can't hear you. We still can't hear you. Hit unmute. Oh, there you go.
Good morning, Mr. Borough President. To the Queen delegation, good morning all, and my colleague. I'm the district manager for Community Board 12 in Queens, the second largest community board in Queens. Covered Jamaica, South Jamaica, Hollis, St. Albans, Springfield, Rochdale. And I know the Borough President heard this before, but we are lobbying for a hospital. We're the second largest community board in Queens County, over 423,000 constituents, a growing community. My Congressman Meeks, we are a growing community and we certainly do not have quality health care. So this is our #1 issue at this time in Community Board 12 District. And we certainly need your support.
Absolutely, Yvonne. You know, we've been talking and fighting for that for years, going back to the late Assemblywoman Barbara Clark, who, you know, was pushing that. We know that we needed. We've had too many hospital closures in our area. So it is trying to work with our state counterparts, and we'll try to make sure that we do our fair share of federal dollars to help with the state budget. I will just say, in all honesty, it is going to be difficult right now to get the dollars because of the deficits that we all are seeing because of the pandemic. But it's something that we've got to keep on the front burner to move forward, because we know we saw how hospitals was overrun at the beginning of the pandemic. And so there definitely needs to be further assistance in that regards. The other piece I will say, that's one of the reasons why also we're looking to make sure that we shore up and maintain the Affordable Care Act so that we can get hospitals, but also community, local community health centers so that we can make sure that we're making sure that the underserved continue to be served there and have preventive medicine so that we can help in that regards. But absolutely understand and know that's one of our top priorities and needs in the 5th Congressional District in Southeastern Queens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Congressman. Let me just add on that. I think this isn't it. This is the issue of the day. And I think we all, from every level of government in Queens, have to work collectively on this issue. I think we have a unique story to tell in light of the pandemic and how hospitals were stretched. And you know, this is an area I think we definitely can all agree on here. Frank Alucio, unmute yourself, Frank. Unmute yourself. We can't hear anything you're saying. Press the unmute button. There you go.
I went to school for that. I used to teach first grade too. You think I know how to do that? Hit the little thing.
I'm sure they didn't have Zoom back then.
Yeah. Ooh, 1886 wasn't that long ago. I'm glad I passed you that year. Anyway, to the Queens delegation, really, I really appreciate this, Donovan, that we've gotten together to work as a teamwork and partnership, which I don't know if anybody else does it like Queens, but we certainly are. And my leader over there, Congressman Meeks, also, it's heavy into teamwork and partnership. And that's where I want to go with this. We talk about transparency, and everybody has said it about the PPE and the vaccine, but it's my concern about getting the word out there. I mean, we're all doing good things and great things, but I'm really not sure how to communicate that to the local bodega next door to my office, for example. Great guys, they work 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's a whole family. That's my concern, getting that really good information that we have out there. And Grace, excuse me, Congresswoman, and Mac, you should know this, that she helped us with American War Vets over on Metropolitan Avenue a couple of years ago, and they had exactly the same situation. And to this day, they worked it out somewhat. They gave them an installment plan, but still that wasn't fair. And the city still knocks on their door every once in a while. I just wanted to mention about Aqueduct and Resorts World, which is a state center and a city center. When I went there for my testing, I've gone there a couple of times. It's great. You sit in your car, they come up to you, blah, blah, blah. They do their thing. But I was asking one of the fellas who was taking care of us, and he said there are a number of people there that particular day. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they were from Staten Island. And this is a couple of weeks ago. So I didn't know that people from Staten Island were coming into Queens for the test. I mean, I understand the Bronx situation and Yankees, certainly understand that, but I didn't understand why they were coming over 15, 20 miles to come out to Queens to get a test. Then I also heard of someone going out to Jones Beach from Queens. There's something wrong with that. I can't put my finger on it. And on another note, Mac, you mentioned Board 9. I forgot to tell everybody, Jimmy has another commitment this morning. He couldn't make the meeting. I didn't know about your college, and I'm a district manager, being a small business area that people can go for help.
Yes.
Again, that's good information, dynamite information that I could share with everybody. We have a small business committee that's really working on some good stuff. But it's not to be bragged about or anything like that. It's just that we're on the same page. And to me, that's the most important thing. And I do appreciate everything that everybody does, including my colleagues, of course, the board, the delegation, and our new leader over in Borough Hall. Thank you.
Frank, let me just add on that, because you're right, disseminating. Now, I got to tell you, everybody knows here, nobody knows how to get a message out to Alexandria. She knows how to get the message out to folks. But what we do is every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, I do a Facebook Live where we try to bring information as to what's going on. And at times we have special guests, you know, whether it was a doctor or scientist talking about vaccines, talking about testing, or whether it's about PPP. So I would encourage definitely everybody in the 5th Congressional District, but we've noticed that we've got people from all over Queens. Actually, recently we've had people from various parts of the country. So every Tuesday at 5 o'clock for at least an hour, I do a Facebook Live where we answer questions that people may have, but also try to disseminate information to individuals. And then it's rebroadcast on a continuous basis.
I want to make one basic point that everybody should be making when you're talking to people. When everything's said and done, you know, they want to blame the governor, they want to blame the mayor, they want to blame different elected officials, they want to blame you, they want to blame this, when everything's said and done, there's not enough vaccines. The Trump administration, they did a good job by getting the vaccines created, okay? It was rapid, it was fast, but they did an awful job actually creating the vaccines and getting them distributed to everybody. There's not enough vaccines. So Biden is now saying he's using, as Greg pointed out, the Defense Production Act, and he's going to be producing, getting the firms to produce more vaccines. When everything's said and done, there's just not enough vaccines out there. So we just need more vaccines. And this administration, I think, has a plan to do that. And you'll start to see big improvements over the next 6 weeks or so. So, you know, come March, the world will be remarkably different just because they're doing a better job at the national level, creating more vaccines. Are there local issues? Are there state issues, you know, about who gets it and who, when it's done, how the community? Yes. But when everything's said and done, there's not enough vaccines yet. There will be more coming online between now and March.
But if I could add to that, Tom and Frank, you bring up good points, because we could have vaccines for everyone, but my constituents who are either elderly or who don't have a computer or who can't speak English, I'm like, you know, they can't sign up for these vaccines online or on the phones who aren't answered. You can be very computer and English literate and still not be able to get it. So Tom's right, but we have to work with the city and state to think of a more efficient system. People can't sign up right now. They don't know how. So
It's called working with community-based organizations who understand their community.
Yeah.
that's without that, we'll be talking about this next year as well. So
kind of like the PPP program.
One last question, if I may, Congressman Meeks, could I have that link or for your Tuesday 5 p.m. Facebook Live?
You just go to his Facebook page, Frank.
That's our Facebook.
Is that's where it's coming out of? I want to listen.
Just go, Greg Meeks.
I want to make sure.
All righty. Well, I think we've held our delegation, and they've been more than kind to us, and want to thank them for the work that they've continuously done. We look forward to continuing to work with each and every one of you on the issues that impact Queens. Godspeed, good luck in DC on all that each and every one of you are doing. Please consider us a partner. And, seriously, one of the things we want to do is strengthen the community boards, because they can play an intricate part in getting your information out and being helpful. And, sort of when you ask your community, who's your community board, a lot of people are unaware of how community boards function. And one of the things we're doing is trying to reimagine that during this period of time. And it's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on and to have so many other guests on, so that the public is aware that these are people who are fighting, many on a volunteer basis. And, we're looking to strengthen them as we move forward. Once again, just wanted to say to you, to the delegation, if you know of people interested in the community boards and serving on them, you have until the 19th to get those applications in. I want to thank Kat Bresla, who got the application up online. No more snail mail. We're like in the 21st and 22nd century now. So that in itself has reduced barriers already. I think we've had over 500 people already put in applications. And I want to be serious for a moment as we speak about diversity on these boards, and to let you know that that's going to be front and central as we move forward as well with the community board. So please, you all are deputized to get that word out. Any parting words from Della? I guess I'll allow each and every one of you to give parting words, and then we look forward to continuing to work with each and every one of you. So I'll start with, we're going, I guess, in the same order we came in. Grace, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Borough President, for bringing us together. This was very helpful to me, and I hope it's helpful to all of our community boards as well. I want to echo the thanks to each and every one of you for being our eyes and ears on the ground. We've worked together in so many ways, big and small, literally from distributing PPE to getting the word out about some of these federal programs. And Frank's right, we can always do more, and we need to do more. But I never forget that as Queens was going through this pandemic, the first in the nation, your input, what was working, what was needed, what wasn't working, literally helped Congress craft legislation and improve legislation to make sure that these programs were efficient and working for everyone. So your input has been so helpful. So keep it coming. Be safe and be healthy, everyone.
Thank you. Great to see you. All right, we'll go to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Of course, thank you so much, Borough President Richards, for convening us. This is just such a great forum and space for us to have to be able to talk and communicate, what's happening on the ground. So just to reiterate what Grace said, we're just so incredibly thankful to have your engagement. So much of what has happened would not have happened if we didn't have community members speaking up. We would not have that vaccination site at First Baptist if community members didn't speak up and reach out to my office. We would not have these FEMA reimbursements for the entire country, $7,000 for every family that was impacted. Losing a loved one in the United States, is now eligible. And that was because of community leaders in East Elmhurst and in Corona that spoke up and talked about this issue really early. So I just want to affirm just how important your feedback is. And I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to more.
Thank you. Congressman Swazi.
Hey, so I got community boards 7 and 11 and 13. So I saw Marilyn and I saw Mark. I don't know if Joe is on here. I don't know if that's Joe's iPad is Joe Marzliano, and Debbie lives in my district. But listen, you're all great partners. I really appreciate all your help. Work with Justin whenever you can. Reach out to me when you need to, and anything we can do to be helpful, we'll do. And thanks for the good work that you're doing. And Donovan, thank you Donovan, I never get to spend any time with you because of the pandemic. It's great to see you. Thank you for pulling this together. But I hope we get to spend some time together soon.
Zoom is always open. Messing with you. I look forward. You're like right on the border. Like I literally could drive to your district in 10 minutes. Good to see you. Look forward to catching up. Congressman Meeks.
You're muted.
Donovan, let me thank you for your leadership in pulling us all together. This is what this is really all about, and what a borough president does is bring every community involved together so that we can talk. Because by doing this, not only do I know about my district, but I also hear about other districts that are outside, and we've got to work together as a borough. And then we can strategize collectively so that all of us can get what we need in our various communities. So thank you for your leadership and all of the managers that are here. Thank you. I say to a lot of times, many of you know that I'm now chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I say you got to go see what's happening on the ground to know what's really taking place. You can hear it, some people can talk to you about it, but until you see what's happening on the ground and hearing from the people that are on the ground, that is what makes the difference. So sometimes we could get caught up in the Washington bubble, because we get into the Washington legalese and the Washington this and that. But the reason why we are here while we're in Washington is because of the people that are on the ground right here, and that's you. So thank you for keeping us informed. Please utilize our offices. That's what we're here for. If you don't know everybody, in your area that's in our district offices, our staff, etc., get to know them also, because that's how we can make a difference and continue to make sure that the people of Queens gets the money back from the federal government into the districts and the areas where they're most needed. So I just want to thank you so very much for all of you being here and taking your time to listen to the New York Queens delegation.
Thank you so much. And now we'll end with Congresswoman Maloney, and then district managers, you're staying on because we have the New York City Department of Veterans Services, and we're joined by Terrance Holliday. Congresswoman Maloney.
Thank you so much, Borough President Donovan Richards, for bringing us together. Queens has the reputation of being one of the most effective boroughs because we all work together. We all move together on projects, and you've had some of the most outstanding borough presidents in the whole state have come from Queens, and you're carrying on that tradition of bringing people together, voicing our vision and our projects so we can work together to make them happen. I want to thank the district managers from my 2 community boards, Debbie Markell and Florence Cloris, and for bringing to my attention the need for the seawall to be repaired in Astoria houses, the need for more senior housing, the need for more vaccination sites and efforts there, the need for a subway stop in Sunnyside Yards. Why have the subway come all the way through Queens and not have a stop for the people to benefit from, and many of the things that I'm working on. And I'd say most importantly, a fundamental change of moving centralized response to the needs for repairs, to decentralize it to the people on the ground level and our housing developments. Thank you all, especially our borough president, for bringing us together today collectively to improve our borough and the city. Thanks. I yield back.
Thank you. Thank you to the delegation. Look forward once again to the work ahead. Thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you. All right, now we are joined by the Department of Veteran Services. Mayor Bill de Blasio created the Department of Veteran Services on April 8, 2016, making DVS the first standalone city agency in the country. But I also have to give credit because I was at the city council at the time, to Councilmember Eric Ulrich, who also pushed this initiative. DVS fulfills its mission by providing New York City veterans with essential services and programs focused on pivotal areas such as economic empowerment, housing security, benefits, health and wellness, and culture. With us this morning is Terrance Holliday, Acting Assistant Commissioner for the New York City Department of Veteran Services. Acting Assistant Commissioner Holliday will provide a report of the agency to the Borough Cabinet. Welcome, Mr. Holliday. So good to see you.
Thank you, Borough President.
Please begin.
Yeah, nice seeing you. Hey, I want to thank you very much for having me today. And I just wanted to share some of the things that we're doing at DVS. Commissioner James Hendon has sort of like given me an opportunity to play free safety and make certain that I share a lot of things with you about today. DVS is providing, I'm having problems with the screen, so I'm just talking without my slides. We're trying to help fill the gaps that a lot of other agencies are doing out there. And one of the things that we've been successful with has been the food insecurity issues. We've been working in the Bronx, southeastern Queens, and getting some of these things out. And we're seeing the need and we're trying to respond to that. But then there are a number of other things that we're doing as well. We've sent the notices out to the veteran service organizations that we have, encouraging them to apply for positions on your board, on your various community boards, because we feel that the need for veterans, and you may already be satisfying that need, is a good thing, because we'll have them on your various boards to interact with the Department of Veteran Services in providing information about veterans, what veterans need, and situations where you need a representative from the Department of Veteran Services to interact, to make certain that we get the right things done. In the summer, we had the COVID-19 was really hitting marks, and we kept trying to find ways to do things. We got together with the New York National Guard to do what we call a mission vet check, where we had members of the National Guard reaching out to lists that were provided to us by veterans organizations and other things that we culled together to find veterans, to make that call during the day, to find out if they're okay, did they need any assistance, that type of thing. We made about 38,000 attempted calls with about 17 to 18,000 positive contacts with veterans, which resulted in about 7,000, about 6,000 to 7,000 need for service, whether it's food, whether it's medical, or something along those lines. Oh, thanks very much. Those are my slides. Okay, so in any event, those are some of the things that we have just done. And one of the things that's happening right now is that we have in Staten Island, they formed an organization to take a look at suicide prevention, and it's running pretty well. And one of our staff members is a social worker, a certified social worker, Melissa Walters, is heading up a group where we're taking a look at setting up this same operation in Queens. And basically it's getting everybody from emergency services to medical services to take a harder look at situations where suicide prevention becomes a need. So that's something new that we're doing, of course, at this point. We're doing something else called Veterans Voices, all right? And this is one where we're reaching out to the community to find these veterans who want to leave a record of who they are, what they did as veterans. And that just opened up at the on 160th Street at the Jamel Mansion. It opened up about a week or so ago. There's a slide here with veteran peers coordinators. We have housing issues where we assign somebody to help veterans looking for affordable housing, identifying apartments, providing transportation, ensuring that veterans have rental subsidies. All right. And tied in with that, we're getting a lot of other things with support services where we're trying to make certain that veterans understand where we can get funding for things. We try to get them the legal services that they do need, or connect them actually to those legal services to make certain that we're helping out with eviction notices and things along those lines. So there's and then also, one of the things that we've done is that we have now accredited veteran counselors. And the veteran counselors are accredited with the VA. We've got about 6 or 7 of them now at this point. All right. And we're trying to connect veterans to the veteran benefits that they're entitled to. Because some of these benefits, by the way, all right, if we're able to get them established, and there are a lot of people who are honorably discharged and are not getting veterans benefits, okay, if we can tie them into annuities that they would get from the VA, it would certainly be of value to them today. All right, so there are just a number of things that we're trying to do in terms of their immediate needs for housing, their immediate needs for medical, and their immediate needs for feeding. Okay, that DVS has been there for a while, but we want to make certain that everybody knows that they're there. And we feel that by reaching out to the community boards to make certain that you have this information, that you have someone there, a veteran or a non-veteran, who can be a point for us and will be a point for that individual, so that they will understand, they can understand the needs of these veterans, and we can get involved in making certain that we can make this connection. So to that end, what we would ask is that, can you make certain that if you have veterans on your community board, can you assign a veteran to become a liaison with DVS? All right. And also, if you have an opportunity to add veterans to your community board, and you may already have done that, that would be good. And what we're going to do is, almost on a monthly basis, we want to meet with these liaisons for on a borough basis. Probably beginning in April, we'll pick a day and we'll do something like that. But that's sort of it where we are. But we've been very active with a lot of things. In Southeastern Queens, we've really gotten involved in making certain that we've connected them to HelloFresh meals, and getting things out to them. But we need to spread that throughout Queens County. And that's really about it for me. I have my slides that are there. You can always reach out to me. I'm at telephone number is 646-951-4406, or you can go to our website and off of New York City Veterans and look for the services that you would be needing for individuals that you're trying to serve. And that's it. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for this time. Just one last thing. I'm an Air Force veteran, and I just found out this morning that at the Super Bowl, that flight that went over the Tampa Stadium, it was a B-2 bomber, a B-1, and a B-52. And the commander of that element was a young female captain with about 1,700 combat hours. Wow. I plug for the Air Force.
Wow.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to Kat Bresler first from my office. I think she has a question she wanted to raise.
Hi,
Yes.
Tim. Thank you so much for your presentation. And obviously, as we go through our transition for new board members, we'll be looking at veterans and how they can help us more. Can I suggest to you, and I'll give you a call later, not online, about reaching out to folks you know and having them apply to be community board members?
Absolutely. You know, I belong to the American Legion and the VFW. Actually, I'm a national officer of the Catholic War Veterans, and it's all out here in Queens. So what I would do is refer you to those particular commanders, okay? Because they would know a lot better than I know a lot of them, but I'd be very happy to do that.
Wonderful. I'll give you a call after.
Yes, ma'am.
Terrance, let me ask you a question. How are you engaging, younger, and I know this has been a challenge for a lot of the VFWs, but getting younger people engaged in some of the VFW spaces? How does your agency connect them? Are you doing it? And, one of the things, and I have to, before I left the council, is we were doing a lot of capacity building with Sharon Sweeney, who really has done a phenomenal job at trying to build capacity for veteran organizations. But just interested in knowing, how are you faring with younger people coming home from combat or from their tours, and and how has that outreach looked? I guess
that's not a short answer. Okay. I think that a lot of the young men and women who are returning from overseas, we're trying to, you want to get them connected. You want to get them connected to an overall organization. And it's not the same as it was in World War II or Vietnam. Okay, everything is online. And I think everybody's got to reach out to see where they are. Now, I know when you take a look at the American Legion, it's a really big organization, but where you have the smaller, the posts, we found that we were trying to give out some money that we got together for posts who had lost revenue and needed some to pay bills. And we found some, but when we went to other posts, we found them with 1 or 2 members, or as Marilyn in CB7 says, they're overwhelmed with things, and you're talking about programs. And I think you want to see a veterans service organization that does a little bit more than sit around the bar and drink beers. You want to include that too, but you want to have more than that. And there's a vibrance there. I think there are things that are coming back. I don't know. But those are thoughts. Those are thoughts that, quite frankly, I'm going to take back to Commissioner Hendon, and maybe we can have we'll have a chat with that, and I'll tell him that you were interested in that as well.
All right, questions from any of our district managers? Don't be shy. Okay, I'll go to Yvonne Reddick, CB12.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, no problem. Yvonne has a question. Okay, just unmute yourself, Yvonne. I'll let you know once you are. So you, I don't know what you're on, so sorry. So you're gonna look for that mute button or mic. There you go. Oh, you just did, and I press it again. Whatever you press. Did something come up? All right, we'll come back to you once you figure it out. Any other questions? There you go. You're unmuted.
Thank you. In Queens, could you tell me how many veterans in the shelter system?
If that's for me, no, ma'am, I can't. I can find out for you and get back to you on that.
Okay, please do.
Yes.
Are you, and there was a big focus on, and there was a lot of, I guess the goal of the de Blasio administration at one point was to eliminate homelessness amongst veterans. So I know they had done a relatively good job at that, or as decent of a job, because I don't have all the facts at this moment. But a few years ago, at least 2 or 3 years ago, there seemed to have been made a lot of progress in this area. I guess the question I have also is, what is veterans housing looking like nowadays? And I know affordable housing has been it's been difficult. I know we're doing a supportive housing project in the Rockaways, for instance. Jonathan Gasca can attest to that. I believe the building is finished actually now, or should be close to completion. And we partnered with WIN on that specific project. I think it's for about 200 veterans. So just thinking about, where do we go from here? And it's a challenge, obviously, with affordable housing for everyone. Does your organization do placements for veterans who are looking for housing? Do you push them to Housing Connect? Okay, go ahead, speak on it.
Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We do that. We have veteran peer coordinators. We have a number of housing initiatives with aftercare, and we're running into successful situations with that. Now, I can't give you accurate numbers that you can go to bank on, but I can get somebody that can talk you to death with it. All right, and I'll be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Any other questions? I know we've been on for almost 2 hours. I want to congratulate all of y'all. Even Jonathan was well behaved today. All righty. So, are there any questions? All right. So, thank you, Terrance, for being here. Are there any other comments? Remember, we're on television. Or questions you have for us while we're all together today? If not, I will see y'all, I guess, the next meeting. Any questions, comments, any things we should be looking out for? Anything you want to yell at me about? Jonathan took himself off the mic as soon as I said,
no,
go ahead,
I want to
Jonathan.
yell. I want to say
go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm going to yell at you. I'll call you. But you know that. But I actually, the thing with the Congress people was really good, Donovan. I got to tell you, this is over 31 years of me doing this, and we never really got them all, forget about, in the same room, even getting them in the room. So that, I think probably it's one of the few good things that came out of this was the pandemic, was that we got to meet them and talk to them. And I think this could be something that you might want to do every once in a while, maybe get folks from the Assembly or the Senate or, because we're all kind of on the same team, even though we have some different issues. The one thing I found over the last 3 decades is all the boards pretty much have the same issues, even though we all think we're special, is that we have 98% of the same issues. So I think that was a good thing to do, Donovan. So
thank you. And we're going to continue to do these. We're going to bring all the delegations in. And then, I'm hoping, God willing, we do this relatively soon before the budget passes. But, and I know we're formulating how we're going to respond to the mayor's budget. But there are some issues I think we can all work collectively. Healthcare is a big one. I mean, we, Community Board 14 cries about it all the time. But relatively every community board is impacted by the lack of beds here in the borough. We saw that during the pandemic.
But it's not only beds, Donovan.
Yeah, hospitals.
Beds is an issue. We lost a hospital. We had a number of hospitals closed. But it's really trauma. Like in Rockaway, you got to go up to Jamaica Hospital, and as hospitals close, you're losing those trauma centers. So even if we go to a model where, you open 2 or 3 trauma centers, that's all they do. And once they're stabilized, send them somewhere else. Because I know it's a tough business, hospitals these days, but it's the trauma issues that are really becoming problematic, I think, throughout the borough. And with the pandemic, it just compounded space in the emergency room, et cetera. So if we maybe focus on a couple of, east, west, south, just a facility that just does trauma, and when they're stable, move them somewhere else, that might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, look forward to that. So I want to thank you. Oh, I want to thank QPTV, public access television. We got to keep that alive. Claire Schulman actually was a big proponent of QPTV and big fighter for it. So I want to thank them for also hosting us and airing this live. So you all were on cable. So smile, you're on candid camera. Thank you all for coming out. Want to thank our delegation once again. Want to thank you, Terrance, and look forward to continuing to work with each and every one of you. Queen strong. All right. Thank you all for having us. All right. Take